Well, I think 2025 has been a bear market, and then we came down on October 10th, and then I could see some big players in the space forcing the price under 100K. So there are a lot of factors at play here. I think the traditional markets, they're extracting value from Bitcoin through various financial instruments. And you have also the 4-year cyclers, the people that believe in the 4-year cycle that kind of think, okay, Bitcoin it hit the peak. 126 was it. And 2026 is a bear market. And then you have to factor in the quantum believers too, that think quantum computing is about to destroy Bitcoin. And then there was a third one. What was it? It's not coming to me now, but maybe it was the yen carry trade unwinding. But there's this all of these things are sort of a mid-curve, mass market, media amplified and fed sentiment. And the thing about sentiment is that it's really the bulk of the market. It is the middle curve, right? It's not the first principle thinkers that are analyzing and understand Bitcoin, understand the technology, understand the problems endemic within the current financial system. They're just kind of reading the news that looks bad and thinking, okay, well, it's over. So that's kind of the reasoning that I have for the market being in the lull that we're in now. But I see 2026 as being a reversal of that.
Now, there's been some speculation as well in and around, it's OGs dumping Bitcoin. Is it just the OGs are outpacing the institutions? What is going on?
Yeah, so that was probably the other one I was going to mention earlier. Like that was another big narrative from probably a month ago. OGs are selling. But the thing is, you can't really tell that OGs are selling, right? Like I think Glassnode put out something today like OGs are accumulating. So, you can't just look at on-chain behavior and say this is a certain thing. You can't look at flows to exchanges and say, okay, well, the exchanges got more coins. OGs are selling. I think there are maybe a few individual cases where you can identify like an address that has been tagged, like Owen Gundon, and you see, okay, Owen Gundon moved to Kraken, right? And that might be a sale, but also it could have been hedged or it could be something else entirely, right? Like there are many things that you can do on exchanges. You can use margin to buy, you can borrow, you can do a number of things, right? So I think the whole narrative around OG selling is just part of some coordinated campaign to suppress the price. Like it's just not knowable in any way, like with all on-chain analytics. It could be people redoing multisig, just moving to what they believe to be quantum safe addresses. Like there's so many things, just redoing your security, right? Any on-chain movement could be any number of things, and you can't say with any clarity that OGs are selling. But of course, the mainstream media loves to grab the simplest narrative and run with it, and people buy it. The mid-curve buys it.
$100,000 was a pipe dream that nobody believed would happen except for Samson Mow.
That's right. Exactly.
I still think Hal Finney is right. We're going to 10 million.
Right.
But anecdotally, just from the OGs that I know, no one has really been selling. Like if you go back a few years, all the OGs I know are already pretty well established. They have everything they need. There is no catalyst at 80K, 90K, 100K that they need to sell everything and sell it en masse. Like everyone is established. I think a lot of Bitcoin holders have some natural diffusion selling Bitcoin for expenses, but there's nothing in the circle that I know where anyone is particularly selling. I think another contributing factor of those long-term holder days destroyed, Joe, is probably rotation into treasury companies too, like just swapping Bitcoin for equity and a different vehicle for various reasons. And you might have opinions on treasury companies, but that is probably one of the factors where you see movements of old coins as well. And I think it's just all amplified and misunderstood because people don't understand all this nuance. They just see the headline and that is it. What's the saying? Bitcoin looks dumpiest right before it's the pumpiest, right? So you do need to flush it out. And another data point I have is that like this past year, it wasn't necessarily OG selling, maybe some, but it was a lot of more recent buyers, the ones that bought at maybe 70, 80K, taking like a 10K profit off of what they what they have, and for them that was good enough. So it is kind of what you're saying, Nathan, like flushing out of the tourist.
Yep.
So that compiled with the sentiment, it paves the way for a very bullish 2026, because any movement up, even if we don't get an all-time high, it breaks that whole narrative of the 4-year cycle, which never really existed, right? It's each cycle is basically a coin toss. You don't say, okay, I tossed the coin 4 times and it went heads, tails, and it's going to do that forever. That's just not the case, and people don't really understand that either, right? So it just goes to show like how difficult Bitcoin is to understand, that there is no cycle, and even all the models, they don't really work. I mean, Bitcoin could suddenly shoot up like 100K, 200K in a very short time, and that would destroy every single model out there. But that is exactly what we will likely see, because Bitcoin is not a tech stock. It is the replacement of the legacy financial system with a new asset. And you can't chart that. You can't do TA on that. When it happens, and you just have to be ready and be prepared.
I completely.
Samson, like what are you sussing out for 2026?
Well, I've been bullish for a very long time, thinking that we're going to hit 1 million after the ETFs launched, because the biggest barrier that removed was the onboarding process, right? You're basically like, ETFs are like a layer 2 for boomers, right? It aggregates all the demand, and there's no need to onboard with an exchange and get your account set up. You just go with what you've got already, your Schwab account or your whatever account, Fidelity, and you just get Bitcoin. So there is no more barrier to entry to Bitcoin. So when it runs, there is no dampener on that. And I think what Joe was talking about, like gold, everyone thought gold will never have a big move, but gold had a massive move. And Bitcoin can have a even greater impact, because the gold market is not that accessible. And you have to also factor in with the gold market, that big move is not $15 trillion coming in the spot market. These market caps move at a multiple. I don't know exactly what the multiple is, but it's a multiple of the cash flow in. It's not a one-to-one relationship. So you discount that with counterfeit gold, estimated somewhere like 3.8 billion, then that these big asset classes can move. Even Nvidia can move, right? And we've seen that happen. So Bitcoin, when it has its move, I think it will outperform gold in I don't know, maybe like a 5-6x multiple, because it is global and it is so accessible to the world. But sorry,
go ahead, Samson.
No, but like, I think 2026 is going to surprise people, because if you, I did a calculation before. If you look at Bitcoin at even 110K, that's just marginally beating inflation, right? Like 126K is, we're outperforming inflation a little bit, but that's assuming inflation is something like 10 to 11%. So now we're even trading at a discount to basic inflation hedging. So I think we've already bottomed. We're kind of like trolling around the bottom of the seabed, and people think it's going to go lower. And you have all these calls saying, we're going to 50, we're going to 10, right? Why not 0, right? If you're going to pick a random number of down, pick 0, right? Or negative. Like
Peter
who's that guy?
Peter Zayed.
Yeah, whoever it was. Now, Doomberg said 5K. Zahan said
Yep.
negative 5K or something like that. Yeah. Just go negative, right? Just go all in. But given if we are right, and we are trawling the bottom of the sea floor, and it's a beach ball under there, it's going to come up very rapidly. And I think you're going to see exactly the same kind of repeat move that gold had, but it's only going to be amplified now, because the news headlines, which drive sentiment, will be like, strategy has overtaken Nvidia. Michael Saylor is now the richest man on the planet. And that's going to even amplify it even more once people get the FOMO.
Outside of like directionally price wise for Bitcoin, in 2026, what do you think are going to be the major kind of macroeconomic factors that most affect it? Whether it be institutions, governments, regulatory worries, or favorable regulations, adoption on the nation state part. What do you think is going to be most prevalent in the next year?
I think the biggest thing is probably monetary expansion, M2, and liquidity. And in terms of other things, I don't feel like they have that much of an impact. It's just monetary expansion and dwindling supply of Bitcoin. And while it feels right now we have infinite Bitcoin, and Saylor can buy billions and billions, and Metaplanet can buy billions, and everyone's buying, and all these treasury companies are buying, that price doesn't move or goes down. I think it is an engineered representation of Bitcoin that can't hold up, because eventually there has to be final settlement, and eventually the price will move, and everyone that is short or has sold covered calls is going to be called, and then we'll see the price going up. So it's really just the Omega candle thesis. Like suddenly one day, for absolutely no reason, you're going to wake up, open your phone, and see Bitcoin going up with a big green candle, and it's just going to keep going. And then news is going to report on that, and then it's going to keep going up the next day, and so on. It'll just happen magically, and you won't have any particular reason, no catalyst. Mainstream media will be scrambling to find a specific reason, but there is no specific reason. It's just Bitcoin is scarce, and you can take delivery and have final settlement, unlike the metals. And paper Bitcoin has to eventually be reconciled with real Bitcoin, and that's it.
So is there going to be paper Bitcoin summer 2.0, or is that are we going to cancel that season?
Well, Bitcoin 2 summer was like treasury companies ripping, right?
Yeah.
I think the rising tide of Bitcoin spot will lift the treasury companies too. You're going to see them trade again at higher MNAVs. And I think that's going to have this self-reinforcing cycle, because we have these preferreds now, which they can monetize, and that'll just feed back in. So right now, you're not seeing that feedback loop, but all of the pieces, all of the machinery, the mechanisms for that feedback loop are in place. And then you just drop an atom bomb on top of that, like the US buying Bitcoin for the Bitcoin Act from Cynthia Lummis, or another country buying, or another country issuing strategy-like debt via Bitcoin bonds, which we are working on at Jan 3. And that is when you get to Hal Finney's 10 million a coin.